Yesterday afternoon, shortly after noon, just before it was presented to the court.
Let me ask you, ma'am, if I could, at what point in your deliberations did it become clear to you personally that the officers would be acquitted?
Just as we voted for them, as we went through the...
Went down to Washington and Western, where there's an incident going on down there. I believe that videotape is ready now. Again, I would like you to see the fact that while in the microcosm it seems that everybody in this community is participating in this, they are not. And this one particular gentleman was quite eloquent in addressing the crowd, seemed to appeal to their conscience. They backed off for quite a while. He got back into his truck about 5 minutes later and left, and that's when the looting began full scale. Please listen to this.
Rage in your system. Tell them about it.
It's not rage for me. You know, I'm a born-again believer. I praise God for that peace. But I look around for me, I see a lot of people that don't understand what's happening. They're blaming themselves. They're blaming a situation. They're letting something control their life. I think it's time, American people. Go home, man. Thank God for what you have. And if you don't have that, thank God that something could be done. Okay? We live in America, man. We are the people. We make the laws. This is wrong. All this is wrong. These people, man, if the people going in there are thieves. Are you going in there? Thank God, brother.
When we come live, I have a live debate going on.
Peace ain't the problem, man. There's no peace. That's why we have this situation. There's a remedy, though. I just hope to God we people in Los Angeles can wake up to that. There's a lot of beautiful people here, but there's a lot of hurt people, a lot of psychologically hurt people, a lot of mental people, a lot of physical people, there's a lot of different races here, and that's why it's so ugly. We need to pray for peace. Not for being a celebrity nowadays. It's not worth it.
Thank you. Okay, as you see, the looting across Western Avenue at the Save-On Drug in Newberry is picking up as police pulled out of the position. It's really, it's a game of chess, perhaps a poor analogy, but what is happening where the police are, there's no looting. As soon as they pull off a position, the looting begins. They simply are not enough of them. They cannot be at all positions. I want to give you a sense of the debate that's going on in the community as to what is happening. This gentleman here, while that tape was just playing, was telling me the problems of what the community is going to be facing in the future.
Once all this stuff stops, you know, when you need to get more stuff back into the neighborhood, it's going to be hard to get businesses that are worthwhile and that are going to be, like, beneficial to the community back here. All this is, I'm just as hurt as any other black person, you know, that Rodney King isn't justified and that the decision was as fucked up as it was, excuse my language, but, you know, it's about, we got to do a little more thinking. This right here is not, this makes no sense. This makes no sense.
Well, so I was going to say, sir, you step in here, please. You disagreed with this. Tell me why.
Because it's time that we stop letting them slap us in the face. We were taught to turn the other cheek, and it's like time to stop. They killed Eula Love. They shot her 13 times. She was disarmed. You know, they keep killing us. They keep killing us. We cannot allow this to keep happening. This is just the beginning of what's to come all through this summer and probably for a while, unless the judicial system is changed. Okay, a lot of people were saying that it's outrage, the looting. I don't agree with the looting, but it's sending out a message. I heard a news broadcast this morning that President Bush is sanctioning a federal injunction against these officers. I think that should be. Those officers should go to jail. The Korean woman that killed the little black girl, she should go to jail.
The bottom line is, obviously, there is a lot of tension within the community citywide. Let me just ask a question, if I might. Let me ask the question. Well, there's a lot of, this shows that there is a great deal of tension in the community, and it has bubbled over the top. Is there any sense in the community that there is outrage citywide over some of the things that have occurred, or do you feel that you're fighting this battle alone?
Let me answer. We're fighting it alone.
Let me answer this. What's important to be conveyed across the media is simply this. You can sit in your sublime elite abode and point the finger and say, look what that fool is on. You understand what I'm saying? But you can't insult the alligator until you cross the river. Unless you know what degradation, debilitation is all about. You can't really make a sound decision as to what's going on around here. Now you say, well, South Central is a ghetto. No, the country is a ghetto. The ghetto is right there. The ghetto is right in our minds. You understand what I'm saying?
Question, sir. One of the businesses down here, this shoe store here, is a black-owned business.
There
are many, if I may, there are many people in this city wondering why people are turning on minority. People are asking, why are rioters turning on minority-owned businesses. And, you know, I will acknowledge there are many white people that are out there participating in this event as well.
All right, but let me
particularly
interject
downtown.
something, because I know the gentleman. I know the gentleman who owns the store over there. First of all, it was precipitated. You know, what you have is a classic example of anarchy. You have the controllable mob and you have the unthinkable mob. Now, when I say the mob, I'm talking about the people who are running around here doing baseless, senseless things. But in spite of all this, these people may be caught up in a sense of madness or caught up in a sense of frenzy, but they're not caught up in a sense of foolishness. They were very distinctive and they differentiated between that business that they started to vandalize and the business who was owned by a Korean next door to it. You understand what I'm saying? So you say things are obvious. If anything is obvious, that's obvious. You know, I think in essence...
Let me just counter that. While we were standing there talking to the owner of that store,
Right.
people over his left-hand shoulder were walking into the store under his full view, reaching in and taking out shoes.
I disagree, because I was standing right there. You understand what I'm saying? That's a lie. First of all, what we need to realize is that people who believe what they're told will know a lot of things that ain't so. A lot of propaganda is being spread around on the situation. The situation is being aggravated.
If you look
You know,
over there,
this South Central...
How should the story be told? You tell me, how should the
The
story
story
be
should be told in essence like this. First of all, the biggest problem in the world could have been solved when it was small. There were people who sat by and said, you know what, this ain't happening in my neighborhood. It can't possibly happen in my neighborhood.
Excuse me. Thank you very much for your thoughts, all of you. I appreciate it.
this was
I think...
that store over
I
there is
think-
a black-owned store, and it wasn't touched.
If you heard what the gentleman said over my shoulder, there's a coin-operated laundromat across the store. It's in the corner of the market, excuse me, that is black-owned. It has not been touched. I think what you got a sense of here is there are a great deal of introspection as to what is going on, and some that's simply reaction in response to what is going on. There is no unanimity in the community. I don't think there's a single answer. And I think what a lot of people in the city, where I'm hearing in many communities in the past 2 days, are sitting back and they're questioning, they're saying, yes, we've heard...
attorneys, and they really undermined all the evidence that was brought forth by the defense attorneys were really slick, and they undermined all the evidence that was brought forth by the prosecuting attorneys. And yes, I mean, I have to be honest with you. When we viewed the videotape, which we must have viewed well over 50, 60 times throughout the course of the trial, when we viewed it initially, I mean, I can't help but tell you, I definitely thought, you know, I couldn't help but think, how could we ever come to the conclusion at the end that these people would have been just in this action? You know, I thought initially that there was going to be absolutely no way. And to be honest with you, when we walked into after the closing arguments, when we walked into the jury room to begin our deliberations, I was still of the notion, as you know, it did take a long time because there were several of us that just weren't convinced that they should be acquitted. And I don't say this right now to clear my name at all. Obviously, I'm reporting anonymous, but I still was not convinced that they should have been acquitted. I mean,
take us through what happened when you went into that jury room and you had that feeling. And you sat down, and as I understand it, you were directed by the judge to address each count individually and to determine guilt or innocence on each
Just take off running. We don't know what sparked them running. It was about a block or 2 blocks from where the fires were. Everybody started running towards the Vaughn store. We don't know if somebody yelled something to get everybody to come with them or not, but maybe you can see them take off here in a minute. A few you saw earlier. On the way, what you see here, as these people started running, a power line that was leading to one of the burning apartment buildings fell probably, with it hanging about 6 feet over the street. You can see this officer here is frantic, and the fireman. There's a live power line now hanging across the street, and they were afraid somebody was going to hit that line and take those bolts, and clearly it would have killed them. So they're panicking here, and these people, though, in a mad rush to the Vaughn store, which I hope we get to here in a second, came across that wire, and it was lucky the firemen, after the bulk of the crowd went through that wire virtually, here you see the wire hanging down. It's probably 6 to 8 feet at the lowest point. The crowd ran under that. I mean, if that would have been down another 2 or 3 feet, we would have had 30, 40 people probably fried. The firemen jumped out in front of this crowd, and policemen got them, pushed them back, but still they made their way through. The firemen cut that line a short time after that picture. More people crossed through and headed for this Vons store. Now what you're going to see here is bizarre. People banging on the door of the Vons, fighting to get inside the front door. I don't know if you can hear it here, but we could hear glass crashing, people shoving. We saw one man fall to the ground. Here's a woman coming out with about 6 or 7 steaks. She was not a shopper, she was a looter. Got what she wanted and left. Here we hear is another from those cigarettes. It seemed like steaks, cigarettes, and the liquor counter hit more than anything. Look at this gentleman here, laughing. I mean, really, truly there was like a festive atmosphere here. I thought this. Everybody, a lot of people. And now listen to this woman. This was a sad story. Came here looking for her son. I don't know if you can hear this audio. Her son had been involved in the looting. Her husband sent him back with the goods that he'd stolen from a store. She didn't hear. You can't hear it? You can't. Okay, she's telling us she came out looking for her husband and son. Her husband had gone looking for the son who had taken something back to a store that he had looted. She is frantic. She came out looking for her son and husband who she had not seen in a half an hour. She said she is scared. They were burning down her apartment building. They were burning down other houses near here. She said she came here from Guam, has been here about a year, has never seen anything like this in her life. She is scared to death. She wants to know why. She kept asking me, where are the troops? Where are the troops? Why aren't they coming? We need their protection. I couldn't answer her. Here you see another looter running off. A sad story for the people caught up in this looting and rioting. Here you see the policemen. Policemen, I'd say, about 5 minutes after the looting broke out at this Vons. A wall of policemen came out of about 5 police cars, stood in front of the Vons. By that time, most of the looters were gone, but they put a conga line up in front. You see them there up in front of the Vons, and the crowd moved on like we've seen since last night. A lot of the troublemakers out of the area before the police.
About that here in Los Angeles, we understand that they are in the area, and yet the word has not come down to for them to come in and take care of this looting that we're looking at. Who gives that word?
Well, that's going to be the law enforcement authorities of Los Angeles. However, they're organized. I don't know who exactly is in charge of that, if it's Daryl Gates or if it's Sheriff Sherm Block. But they're the ones who are going to decide how we're going to be used, and I imagine they're working jointly together right now.
Lieutenant, can you tell us what orders the guardsmen are going to be under, exactly what they can and cannot do?
Well, the guardsmen, we're going to have 3 missions coming into the Los Angeles area, and this has been given to us by law enforcement, is that we're going to help provide security by preventing looting and rioting. We might be asked to do some security patrols around the inner perimeter, and I don't know what that perimeter will be and who will establish it. And then we will also be there to help protect firefighters if they respond to fires as needed.
If threatened, sir, will the guardsmen be permitted to use deadly force?
They'll be given weapons, and the decision whether to issue ammo will be with the law enforcement. And yes, if their life is threatened and it's a life-threatening situation, they are by all means authorized to protect their lives.
Lieutenant, it's been 27 years since the California National Guard was called out to quell this type of civil unrest. How trained are your troops to deal with this kind of unrest in our streets?
Guard has grown a lot since in 27 years. We've become much more professional than we were 27 years ago. We feel they're very well trained. A lot of the time spent preparing for any deployment is spent reviewing, rehearsing, and doing training specifically geared towards civil disturbance.
Mm-hmm. And that would be sort of, some people might feel that the presence of the Guard would be more provocational. They are trained, I would understand, to not be that way.
They're very well disciplined. In fact, in the related area in supporting law enforcement and drug interdiction, our soldiers have been very well disciplined, restrained, even when there have been occasions when they've been fired upon. They're very professional, and the leadership of the California National Guard is very confident in its troops.
Lieutenant, these troops are about to enter a very dangerous situation. Can you tell us what's running through their minds right now, or as they approach the scene?
But they're probably going to be running through their minds, their leadership. They're going to do everything that they can to prepare for it. They're probably concentrating exactly on what they can do and can't do. They're going to be concentrating on making sure they have the proper equipment, that they, they're going to be going through inspections, of course, as I mentioned earlier, rehearsals. They're going to do everything they can to prepare that to ensure they're prepared logistically.
Okay,
Lieutenant, we wish you safety. Thanks very much for being with us.
And part of the reason the National Guard is being called in is to take care of this sort of situation, which appears to be looting. David Goldstein live in Sky 9. What can you see?
Well, Paula, we're just 2 blocks up, Vermont, from that fire that we showed you in that police presence. Everyone running over to the sporting goods store and another shopping center, just going in and out and totally looting the sporting goods store right now. There was one guy who was going in, grabbing things, coming out, handing them to people in the parking lot, going back in for more. If we could pull out wide there, you see people are running up, just charging toward another store now. We're going to swing around the other side. I don't know, maybe there's nothing left in the sporting goods shop, but they are just running wild in this shopping center right now. We are on Vermont. As I mentioned, it is a block and a half up from where that police presence was. Those police officers are still back down, guarding the area down there with the Ralph's supermarket. But this shopping center now, they have started to loot the sporting goods store, and now the toy store, where they had just charged up about 5 or 6 stores from the sporting goods store, now inside the toy store. Everyone just running in, grabbing what they can, and running out. And I don't know if they're going to go from store to store here or what's going to happen.
Looks like they're not just looting, Dave. They're smashing windows and attacking vehicles. Everything, it's just completely out of control.
It is totally out of control here on Vermont. They're smashing windows. There's a police car that's driving by, but as we've seen all morning, they wait until they get the entire police presence. I'm looking back where you can't see over the fire area, and all those 10 or 12 police cars are still sitting there. The police officers guarding that street. I imagine at some point they're going to start deploying. They've hit another store now. They're just going to take this shopping center apart, it looks like.
David, need to interrupt you for a moment. Sorry, we're going to Jane now in our newsroom with what I'm told is an urgent report. Jane?
Urgent report just into our newsroom. Police Chief Darrell Gates and Mayor Tom Bradley have announced an extension of the curfew to include all of the city of Los Angeles. Let me say that one more time. Chief Gates and Mayor Bradley have announced an extension of the curfew to include all of the city of Los Angeles. I am not satisfied with the way things have been going, and I believe it's absolutely essential to shut things down after sundown. That quote from Chief Gates. The chief said that people will be questioned as to their business if they are seen on the streets after dark. And as we say that, we can tell you that there are a slew of bulletins coming in as the city grinds to a halt. Offices from the Department of Motor Vehicles to universities to schools saying that they are shutting down, not doing any business. And we can also tell you, for example, if you plan on taking any kind of public transportation, it's not necessarily guaranteed. 3 dash bus routes, downtown Route C, Midtown Crenshaw, and Watts have been shut down. And so, as you can see, things are grinding to a halt in the city of Los Angeles. Back to you, David Goldstein, at the scene.
Okay, Jane, they're still taking apart the shopping center. They're in the toy store, the sporting goods store. There's people, you see people running from 2 or 3 blocks away, just running over to the shopping center now to try to join in, and I guess what they all think is a party here with the looting of these stores. We don't know if these stores were open for business this morning, if there was anyone inside, because this is a fairly new area here in the Wilshire district. This was not in the South Central area that was hardest hit overnight, where I would imagine most of those business people did not open up this morning. We're not sure about this area if these stores were open, but these people are just going in and grabbing what they can. There's people coming out with huge boxes. They just throw the boxes on the ground outside on the parking lot, grab what was inside, and just go running away. There's people going in and out, grabbing things, throwing it out, going back in, grabbing more, and coming out again. Right now, 2 stores, but there are probably about 6 or 8 stores in this shopping center. I noticed a Radio Shack and another store. Not sure what these people are going to do or where they're going to take it from here.
David, just to get some sort of perspective on what seems like lunacy, you've been flying over that area for some time now, and we've basically seen a lot of looting. and it seems to be getting a little more intense out there. Yet we haven't seen the kind of violence that we were seeing last night, people being pulled from cars, or have you?
No, that I have not seen as yet. Thank goodness we haven't seen that. We're just seeing the looting right now. We haven't noticed any of the things that happened, the tragic things yesterday where people were pulled out of cars. But here you see some guys going into their car. They're taking off after grabbing what they can. It's incredible to see what is going on. You're looking at it in the parking lot. People just running and grabbing whatever they can and going out. And we can't give you a wide enough shot, but there are people coming from blocks and blocks away as if somebody is on a giant megaphone saying, come on here and grab what you can.
David, what's the location of where this is taking place?
We are on Vermont in the Wilshire District, probably about 4th or 5th Street, I believe. We're about 2 blocks up from that fire at 3rd and Vermont. The police officers are still down there guarding that area. There are still about 10 or 12 police cars and helmeted officers outside the fire area at 3rd and Vermont. They haven't moved up the block and a half as yet. We would imagine, as we've been talked about, they're outnumbered here, and they're probably waiting for the proper deployment.
David, you say that every once in a while you see a police officer drive by the looters. Did the looters ever attempt to make a move on the officers?
No, they never attempted to make a move on the officers. The officers never attempted to make a move on them. The officers have to deploy, we imagine, in the proper way, and one police car can't take on a crowd like this.
David, can you tell where these people are coming from? It seems like so many, and as you said, they're going in all different
They live in the area, or they're coming from cars driving up. We saw people just jumping in the cars there. We can't widen up enough to show that people are just running from blocks away, I don't know, coming out of their house.
Is it a sort of a group of people, a mob, if you will, or is it just different people just...
We have to give an assist to a civilian. It looked like a civilian. Yeah. A man ran out of the store and tackled someone who was running away with merchandise. In fact, when the police were moving in on that person, you'd think the guy would just drop the stuff and run, but he didn't. He just kept on running. Yeah, but the civilian tackled him.
They're just running crazy right now. They don't even care about police until the police pull up. They still go running. As you mentioned, they go running out with all the boxes. It doesn't matter. You would think that in a normal situation, that's eye-to-eye contact, the police officer with somebody carrying merchandise. That's an arrest right there, and probably a conviction with what the police have seen, you carrying merchandise out. But everyone knows that police can't arrest this many people. They just go running with their merchandise, and the police really aren't running after them. They can't run after them at this point. They just want to take control of shopping center to shopping center. Right now, that's all they can do.
So this shopping center appears to be stabilized in the situation there, at least for the moment. But as we've been seeing throughout the day, one settles down and they just go somewhere else.
There are a few more shopping centers, unfortunately, right up the block, and a car dealership, and we're going to keep our eye out and see what happens here.
David, it doesn't seem as if though these...
The store, they came with bats, they came with clubs, they came with any type of violent device that they could possibly pick up. They started marching towards the store, and officers rushed them. They immediately fired shots in the air. I heard at least a half a dozen shots fired, and the crowd scattered like mad. So obviously Compton police, at least, not taking any more. They're saying enough is enough. They're firing shots to ward off the people. And maybe that's what needs to be done to get these people out of here, because obviously they've already damaged an entire shopping strip here. We have J.J. Newberry, an entire shopping strip has been burned down.